I think our next event here in the session is to discuss a little bit more about that new institute. And I'm going to hand over the mic here to Professor Andrew Landau. Andrew is one of the distinguished staff scientists, many titles, which I'll have to remind myself of at Sandia National Labs, but he's also research faculty and one of the essential parts of this foundation that's helped build us to where we are today. And Andrew's going to be sharing this next session. So why don't the panelists join us as well?
Thank you, Ivan. It's always a pleasure hearing Carl, talk about quantum information science. He really is truly one of the pioneers and founders of the field. And while he said he's also, I would say, a genius and probably one of the smartest people in the state. And his embarrassment at all of these accolades bestowed upon him reminded me of a quote of another genius, Albert Einstein, who said, "The only way to escape the corruption of the personal corruption of praise is to go on working." So even though you're retired, Carl, I encourage you to go on working. I know Carl is actually doing great work with Chris Jackson, continue to work on the foundational questions in quantum theory. And he's even been keeping us up to date here at UNM on that work. So thank you, Carl.
I'm tempted to walk out and start working.
I should say that Carl's the person who brought me here to New Mexico. When he came out to visit me when I was a postdoc at MIT years ago, he's the one that attracted me to New Mexico. And I've been out here in the land of quantum enchantment ever since. I came out in 2005 as a faculty member at UNM, and then jointly and primarily as a staff member at Sandia Labs in 2009. And it's been a great experience, working in both of those institutions. And so with both of my hats on as both a faculty member and a lab scientist, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panel here who represent academia and the labs to talk about our joint quantum institute at Quantum New Mexico Institute and their perspectives on it. Let me introduce them. So you've all have seen Ivan Deutsch earlier today. He's a distinguished faculty member here at UNM and the director of the Center for Quantum Information and Control. He's also the founding director of QNMI, which we'll be talking about in a bit. Setsu Matodi is a manager of the Department of Quantum Computer Science at Sandia and also co-leads the QNMI with Ivan. And Mike Rabin is the quantum group leader at Los Alamos National Laboratories and previously was the director of the Pulse Field facility there. And so we look forward to hearing all their perspectives on the Joint Quantum New Mexico Institute. So today what I wanted to do is kind of focus on, I'm going to throw out 3 questions to our panelists and hope that they each have an interesting response to them. We're going to talk about the past, present, and future of this Joint Quantum New Mexico Institute, and then time permitting, solicit questions from the audience here. So like Carl, I'm going to look at my phone to remember my questions here. Just make sure I get those phrased correctly. All right, so let's start in the past. I'll start with you, Ivan, and we'll kind of cycle through. So my first question is, from your perspective, what were the important drivers for creating the Joint QNM Institute? And what history and background did your institution bring to help get it started?
Right, thanks. Well, I think we've talked a lot already about the history and background, and Carl reminded us a lot about how we worked to build the program here at UNM. But from the beginning, we were working also in partnerships with the labs. In the early days, that was in the 1990s, we were working very closely with Los Alamos. And we used to actually have, I don't know if anyone of our alumni are old enough to remember this, but we used to have a monthly meeting at the Santa Fe Institute with Los Alamos folks. And we would have a quantum seminar, and then we would go out for a meal. And we would, try to sometimes brave the snowstorms back and forth. And so we were very much working, thinking about our environment, what was going on, when Sandia started to really become interested. And that was around 2004. Matt Blaine, Chris Tigas were some of the drivers there. And I was asked by Eric DeBenedictis at that time to come and give a short course to people like Rick Muller and Jim Hudgens and people who some of the Sandians will know to help get people involved. So it was very exciting that there was going to be now Sandia was really, and they went exponentially. I mean, it was like inflationary cosmology. There was a big bang and then amazing stuff going on at Sandia as well. So the other piece of this history is that I think it was at the end of 2020 or early 2021, there was we reached a charge between the provost here at UNM, James Holloway, and the then new deputy CRO, Basil Hazan, for a road mapping activity to see how we could work together more closely between Sandia and UNM. And through that, we said, look, there are other places. This, I think, was brought up, I think maybe by Corbin or Zach, about what's happened in Boulder, for example, between NIST and CU, and how that really was part of how Boulder grew its ecosystem. And we said, we need to do that here in New Mexico. And there's a lot more history. Students will hear more about that. Students who have worked together, Los Alamos has supervised many UNM students and many now at Sandia. So that's really where we're coming from. That brought us, I think, to a little before the point we are today.
Thanks, Ivan. And while all of you can project, I think I'll hand you the microphone just so the people online, just in case they can't hear. So let me hand this to you, Senso. Just pass it down the line as you answer questions here.
Yeah, I think the Zoom people can hear us because that's the microphone for Zoom.
Oh, it is. I wasn't sure.
But this is for the room, so the room can hear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll repeat the question again, just to remind the audience here as well. So from your perspective, what were the important drivers for creating the Joint QNM Institute? And what history and background did your institution bring to help get it started?
These are relatively softball questions, so thank you, Andrew. Andrew is my,
Yeah.
I'm Andrew's manager, so.
Can't make them too.
Yeah, I mean, I joined Sandia in 2013 and kind of buried myself with some in-house research programs, so I never really interacted externally to folks. So there's some selfish also reasons on my end. When I took on to lead the quantum computer science department, I needed an avenue to start interfacing with the community. I hadn't met most of the folks at UNM. I hadn't really done any externally visible research at that point. And the academic alliance, one thing that I learned, Sandia has this, I don't think this is on.
You have to bring it very close to your mouth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
One thing I learned kind of as I started understanding more about the whole ecosystem at Sandia is this academic alliance program, and they fund, they contribute significantly to Sandia's LDRD program, the laboratory directed research and development efforts, where we fund contracts with partner universities across the board. And it's very much a scattershot, like in terms of if they see an interesting proposal and somebody writes in a contract, they will fund a supplementary agreement with that contract. And the academic alliance program really wanted to not do this in a scattershot approach. They really wanted to identify who are the universities and that we really partner with the most, and with which topics have we fostered the greatest partnerships with. And they had, UNM was identified as one university where where quantum is one of the strongest topics where we partnered. There was a couple more topics, and they charged us, and I volunteered readily, and Ivan come up with a roadmap on how do we consolidate that partnership under one umbrella that the academic programs at Sandia can focus its LDRD funding towards. And kind of very quickly, we both realized that we loved the JQI model, we loved the HILA model of, and what kind of opportunities those could bring. Sandia is not as a national security engineering lab, not necessarily a science lab. Our history is, and that very much drives the kind of contracts and agreements we have through the Department of Energy. We could benefit with being more competitive on open science programs through the DOE Office of Science, BES, FES. This is something we're not naturally strong in. At the same time, we could also offer joint appointment, strengthen our joint appointments with UNM and offer access to lab space and other research capabilities that to UNM faculty. So an institute like this made a lot of sense, and that was kind of the primary driver, is to have this joint symbiotic relationship that benefits both organizations.
Okay, I'll pick it up from there. This morning was substantially about building our much larger alliance, Mountain West, statewide, government, academia, national labs, everybody all together. Okay, the Institute, as Ivan has reminded me a couple of times, the Institute is the academic cradle for all of that. Without the Institute growing, expanding, building those connections, we don't have the intellectual base for the future. Now, I could diss anybody's qubit, right? That's easy to do, but it's much better to say there are so many future ways we will be doing quantum computing and related quantum science and technology in the future. We do not know which one. We do not know, as was pointed out this morning, how to program a quantum computer. Okay, now that's a bit of a glib statement. A more complete statement is we do not have a generalized routine way by which we have already engineered, meaning this community has engineered the layers of abstraction to put everything together so we can run like we're writing Python code. Okay, I'm not dissing Python here. Okay, so it's really the coming together and recognizing that the intellectual base that we have in this room, the academic component of QNM, is critical for our future success. And so for the bigger project, the Mountain West, the statewide initiatives, for any of that to be meaningful and strong, the base has to be strong. And so this is where we start. What does that mean? That means I'm really looking for everything we can do to lower the barriers, reduce the friction, and create the collaborations with students, with postdocs, guest researchers, faculty members, staff scientists, everybody all together. So that is what I think brings everything together and why we need the Institute.
Okay, so thank you for addressing the past. I feel like this is like,
Ghost of Christmas. or-
Ghost of Christmas.
I'm sure.
So, all right, well, with apologies to Dickens, I'll move on to the present here. We've heard a lot, especially this morning, about how industry contributes to the quantum information science and technology ecosystem. How do your institutions contribute to this ecosystem today in unique and collaborative ways that the joint QNM Institute can enhance? And if you have specific examples, we'd love to hear them.
Right. So I think, the way, of course, from the university side, our mission is knowledge creation and knowledge distribution. That's what the university is about. And we do that in the classroom, and we do that in apprenticeship style relationships with our students and our postdocs, and learn together. And that apprentice goes both ways. I know my students are ready to graduate when they start teaching me, and that happens sooner rather than you think. And I think that's the major thing that the university brings to the QNM Institute. I would say, that student and postdoctoral relationship is also a shared relationship. As I mentioned earlier, there's a history of that. We have now about a dozen of our students are doing their supervision, are supervised in the national labs. And it allows us a bigger program with more opportunities in other labs with other theorists than beyond our faculty. And the other thing that we bring to the table is collaboration. between the faculty and the staff scientists. And we have lots of examples going back. Andrew led the first grand challenge in LDRD Grand Challenge in quantum information science. It was called Aquarius, and we participated in that. And there are many such programs, individual investigator type LDRD. My colleague Vlad Marvion is working with Andrew Brzezinski, staff scientist at Sandia. I'm working with Mike Martin at Los Alamos. There are numerous examples. Everyone I see in the audience, I see Peter Schwint, who supervised a number of students, including Caleb, who is right there in Campbell is in the audience. So we're doing it already. The Institute isn't the beginning, it's the expansion of this collaborative effort. And the present is now, it's happening. And I think, Jake mentioned, Jake Douglas in his talk about the NSF engines. I think the Institute will allow us potentially to go after these larger scale efforts that will require many more people and much more bandwidth than we have. And we're gonna really need to be ramping that up to get that and to reach our potentials. And that's what QNMI is to me.
Yeah, I mean, on Sandia's end, we have a really large quantum information science program. Like, I mean, you've heard from that since we one of our scientists took a course with Ivan, like he said, the program has grown exponentially. We have more than 200 FTEs worth of a program right now with staff across from experiment through theory. It's our investment into a fully end-to-end vertical stack has really allowed us to contribute and kind of excel in a lot of those things that uniquely only a lab like Sandia can excel, has allowed us to contribute across the board, I think, with in the broader ecosystem. We have our ion trap group, which was formed 15 years ago, has delivered, I think in the past 15 years, has delivered 22 fully packaged functional trapped ions to different academic groups and industry, more than 22. I was a student with Ike Chuang in 2006 when we got some Sandia traps. That's when I first found out about Sandia, and they kept actually short circuiting. But I remember that. I remember Ike's frustration because they kept burning out.
You did experiments, that's all?
No, I watched experiments.
Okay, you watched the smoke.
We now have through the Trapped Ion program, we have the QScout Open User Testbed, one of the two premier DOE testbeds, AQT at Berkeley being the other one. We have our quantum performance lab recently that does characterization and benchmarking of quantum computing systems. I recently checked some of their history, and in the past 2 years, they co-published with 25 different organizations across the world and companies, and 2 Nature papers, one of them which was on the cover of Nature. So generally, we are trying to have as many collaborations across the board as possible, and I hope that this institute will further that and will create a home for that that's much more formal and much more under one roof, that really strengthens increases the way we work with the rest of the organizations here in New Mexico.
Okay, so if I was trying to characterize all of the quantum information, science and technology, research and development at Los Alamos, that would be mind-boggling in its diversity. It is a large heterogeneous science and technology community, and it is something where everyone here can be connected. So there are lots of ways for us to build and develop collaborations. We have things that range from basic quantum computing theory, information science is applied to quantum machine learning, nanotechnology, development of photonic quantum technology, trapped atom. Sorry, ions are atoms too. I got that this morning. And then all right, trapped atom-based quantum sensing and quantum networking. So we're across all of these things. I would say maybe some piece that is an opportunity space for greater collaboration in the New Mexico family is on quantum materials, right? So quantum materials for developing new quantum hardware, right? Now that is a risky bet, a minority view in quantum information science and technology. But we don't know what's going to work. We don't know what's going to work how well in 15 years. So really the full spectrum of research is really needed in the American R&D world. There shouldn't be some piece of quantum science, quantum technology that we are not trying. We're open to all of that. So some specific things that are ways, for us to help get plugged in. Can't help but mention our Nanotech Center, co-led with the Sandia Laboratory. I mean, it is the place for doing new devices at the, quantum plus nano. That is the place to do this. We're open to collaboration, and it's what we really should be doing in this kind of institute.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's talk about the future now, and hopefully we're not in the grave in this analogy that I sort of walked into without realizing. Okay, so the question I have about the future for you three is, what do you aspire the Joint Quantum New Mexico Institute to be? If it is wildly successful, what outcomes would you like to see? Hopefully not from the grave.
Yeah, hopefully not. So Setso mentioned the model of the JQI and JILA. And the thing about those institutions that we aspire to be is there's complete fluidity and transparency. Do you know whether Adam Kaufman at CU, is he a CU faculty member, or is he at NIST? Do you know whether Trey Porto is, these are people I'm talking about that some of the people in the audience know. Are they NIST people, or are they University of Maryland people? And that kind of joint effort is what I would like to see the QNMI become. I would like there to be QNM fellows who are from Los Alamos, from Sandia, from UNM, and who are working jointly, who are working with students. And I think that would be an amazing outcome. I'd like to see that transparency. There are mechanisms, it's complicated to make that work. Maybe we need a new building. No, we got Pais, it's beautiful. But I think those are the ways in which we pull together. I think there are other things that are different from, say, the JQI or JILA, which are the moment we live in today, that a lot of which we heard about in the morning session. What's just completely different from when Carl and I got this thing going at UNM years ago, there was no such thing as a quantum industry. And well, that's very important right now. And it's important for us to understand our role within the Institute in relationship to the growing industry, both in which innovation helps drive that, but in the way that industry may or may not drive what we do, and our partnerships there. And I think, but it'll be important for us, I think, to think about the future of the Institute also in the context of the broader ecosystem that we heard all about in the morning. And how are we going to fit in that? What is our role going to be? So I think that's going to be, I don't have all the answers, although my students might think I say that all the time. There's still a lot of questions out there about it.
I was just thinking success means new building, but Ivan just said we don't need one.
Look at all the labs. Yeah.
I haven't thought much beyond that. Honestly, right now, what's really the figuring out, I think it centers to what Ivan said, which is there's a seamless association of folks involved with the Institute of where they are. And I do see that. I work with, we have a graduate student from NIST who also seems to be from CU Boulder. who is now a Sandian. And I had no idea whether he was at CU Boulder or NIST, and that's because of the kind of collaboration that they have. And I hope that we could have this kind of seamless transition between the different institutions and driven by joint, well-established, long-lasting research programs that are funded in various ways. The things to figure out now are we have, Ivan mentioned a dozen students. 9 of those dozen students are in my group alone from the physics department that are interns in our group. We really want to figure out ways to create ways to fund research assistant positions at UNM, at the university, as fellowships through this institute that will benefit graduate students across all departments and across all Sandias. So figuring out the IP agreements, figuring out the structure, the legal and I would say administrative structure that makes this institute an actual thing like JQI, to me, that is success. And I think once that happens, then other folks will want to emulate us, just like the way we keep mentioning JQI or HILA. And our own building. I think that would be awesome because Sandia is on base. It's hard for us to host people. We are starting to reach out to externally visible centers at Sandia. SINT, for example, is a massive opportunity that the Quantum New Mexico Institute can engage with. But we do need some external spaces where folks from all over the country can come and have retreats and meet.
Okay, I'll be on record for yes for a building. That's easy. People who know our buildings are in on that. What I'm looking for is just what you guys said. Okay, I want to be able to look into a laboratory and not know where the people in that laboratory, where they hang their hat officially. I want to look in and see people working together and really not be able to tell whether they're from Sandia, Los Alamos, from one of the companies, from UNM, right? So it's that mixing that I'm looking for. Okay, here's one of our challenges. Los Alamos lab, 100 miles away. All right, so we are gonna have to really work. Part of what we've got to do is figure out how to, I can't make it closer, right? But how do we make the ease of working together higher? And so I'm really actively interested in how do I help that happen? So other things that I'm looking for, will be when you see lots of joint publications, when you see people teaching classes together. And then I'm going to give my sort of spiel, it's a standard spiel. People who work for me will know this one. When we have someone at our lab who is a student and they're an intern at our lab, I'm looking for the word and. I'm using this in a very classical logic sense. Okay, they have the best of both worlds, the national lab world and the academic world. All right, so that means that their faculty and the student are really engaged with each other and they have that support. And national lab staff are also engaged. So when you get that, that is the best magic that I have seen for students working on undergraduate, bachelor's, master's degrees or PhDs getting at any national lab. Now I've seen that 4 different national labs, and I've also seen it when one part of that equation is not there. All right, so people here, if you are a faculty member, if you are a national lab scientist or engineering researcher, when you have a student, I'm looking for the word and. I want both sides to hold up their end of the deal. And when we see that, that is the real magic. So that's a charge to all of us in all of our programs. We keep doing, if we do a lot of that, this room, when we reconvene for a few symposia from now, this room will be bigger. We'll need a bigger auditorium. That would be another mark of success. And again, I'm really totally on the quantum campus side and a bigger place. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, we're just about at time here. We have time for maybe one question if somebody has a burning question for the panel. Okay, I'll pass this for our one question. And I'll ask the panel to be brief in their response to, we don't go over on time. I'll pass this lovely mic that's acting like a hand mic here.
So you talk a lot about models that deliver misses other places. in industry, we have this phrase, and I can't remember how it goes. It's either the strategy is culture for breakfast or culture and strategy for breakfast. I think it's actually both, just depends on the day. But how do you think about the cultural part about what you're talking about? Many of us have lived through watching the science of all of the institutes that you're talking about, but we always see the people that come up with it. And I see the difference of some of the people that you named coming out of those institutes and in industry, build our culture out of the culture that you built. So how do you think about that sort of thing? You have a way of building good culture into the new institute that you're building.
Do you want to take that one?
I'll kick off.
Yeah, well said. We said a lot about strategy, maybe a word or two about culture from you three would be helpful, and then we'll wrap up the panel.
Okay, I'll give my opinion here. Culture wins. Culture is what we all build together, our collective values, what we really do, right? So, yeah, I spent a lot of time working on a lab-wide quantum strategy document. Okay, I know how many people have read it. I know maybe more have read the executive summary or the Cliff Notes version. Okay, culture is really the thing that lives for the longest time. And so we have to decide, what culture do we want? Okay, Ivan came here because of Carl, because of what was being built then. Richard Hughes had an impact on me coming to Los Alamos in the early 2000s. Again, a visionary, someone who said, we can do this and this is cool. So that component of excitement and curiosity that is what we bake into the culture, that is the thing that I think when it's graduates and interns who move on or people who start companies, we want them to take that with them. So think of all the positive things. Okay, if you're a teacher here, UNM, CNM, elsewhere, you have the opportunity to help build that culture. So, when I've seen it really work, it's when the Institute, all right, so that's us. We have for ourselves high expectations of the Institute. Scientific, productivity, creativity, involvement, impact, connection to companies, connection to greater programs, connection to education so that students really learn. So when the Institute has that expectation of itself, and then the leaders and faculty or lead scientists in an institute, that's a lot of people here, they have that expectation of each other, right? So, and then when that is seen by everyone, whoa, I gotta do my part. Jake did a stunning job on something, I've got to come up at the same level of quality. When younger people see that, they rise. Right? It's as simple as that. That is the thing we need to be doing to create our best culture. When the youngest of our students have that expectation of excellence from each other, then we win.
Yeah, watch your back here. Actually, you were the most passionate about raising your hand, and we're over on time. So I think let's just thank our panelists here.